The other day, I was invited to go to speak to a government agency. I just said no, even though they wanted to pay me my full fee, because it's speaking to the wrong group of people that wouldn't care about the information I'm trying to relay. It would create some negative energy or negative buzz or negative word of mouth. I'm sure I'd get a check, but it's not worth the time or energy. As if the owner was walking around their company describing everything, describing the interactions with the customers, maybe 3 or 4 sentences, describing how the employees work together, describing how we live core values and hire against the core values and how we celebrate core values on a daily basis with enough description that somebody else could go, oh, I can see it. I can literally see your company. That's a vivid vision. It's really what they're starving for. Your employees want to know what they're building. You know, there's the old story of the 3 guys making bricks in Barcelona, Spain. They're sitting on the dust, and they asked the one guy, what are you doing? He said, I'm making bricks. They asked the second guy, what are you doing? He said, I'm building a wall. I get to make bricks to build a wall. They asked the third guy, what are you doing? He said,
you're listening to the Real Business Connections Network. Real Business Connections Network. Powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. Subscribe now and check us out at realbusinessconnections.com. Enjoy the show.
Cameron Herold, help me start a cult today. Can we do that?
absolutely. I'm known for building what I've always said is a little bit more than a business, a little bit less than a religion, and building companies that are in that zone of a high culture. So yes, we will absolutely build something very close to a cult.
And we joke. I know you've been on Sarah and Nippy's podcast, a little bit culty. They've been on the show. I'll put that in the notes. But we don't have to start some crazy religious cult to insert some of the cult-like culture elements and build a really strong business. In my case, it's a mastermind, but are companies running like cults? Let's start there.
I think some companies are running like cults, and if they observe what is good about a cult and when does a cult go too far, or when does a company culture go too far, there's some dangers, right? It's like religion. There's some good parts of religion, then there can be some bad parts of religion. I think very many companies, like the average companies, are just kind of boring, beige, no culture, no core values. They don't file any of the kind of normal core tenets that is going to make you a good company to work for. But I think the best companies, if you think of the best places to work, best companies to work for, you know, the fastest growing companies, the companies that get a lot of press, those tend to be very high on the culture side for sure.
Provide us an example. What's a company that you look up to for their company culture, or even a company you've been a part of and helped develop that culture for?
Yeah, I've coached, probably a dozen different companies that have gone on to rank as number 1 to work for in their country or their state. I coached, in 1 year, I coached one company that went on to work number 2 in the United States on Glassdoor as the best company to work for. And I was coaching the number 12 ranked company on Glassdoor. So pretty high results. I coached the number 2 company in Canada, number 1 company in Florida, number 1 company in Cincinnati, coached 2 companies that went on to rank number 1 to work for in Australia. I've been around a lot of companies and a lot of company cultures that have grown, pretty well. I don't sit and look at a lot of companies that are in the press today around culture just because I understand it so well. I've written books on it. So it's not necessarily something that I have to study anymore because I'm pretty well regarded as an expert in this space.
What are these companies doing so darn well?
I think of it like a jigsaw puzzle. And remember when you were a little kid and your mom gave you a jigsaw puzzle and there was a picture on the front of the box? That picture is what I call a vivid vision. And the best companies to work for on the planet have a vivid vision of what their company looks like, acts like, and feels like in the future. And everybody can see what they're building. They're all aligned with that common purpose. They know what the customer interactions are going to be like. They know what the employees' interactions are like. They can see what the owner can see. That's the starting point, is the picture on the front of the box. And then it's the 4 corners of the jigsaw puzzle, right? Remember, you'd find the 4 corners and then you'd build the sides. The 4 corners of the jigsaw puzzle are your core values, your core purpose, your BHAG, which is the Jim Collins term, the big, hairy, audacious goal, and then the 1-year plan. And I'll speak to each of these really quickly. But then the 4 sides of the puzzle are the people systems, strategic thinking systems, the meeting systems, and the financial systems. Culture really emerges from all of this. So the first is core values. Like a cult, there's core values. Like a religion, there's core values, right? Like a good family that raises people, you go back to the core values. It's kind of a common set of rules and agreements of how we're going to exist and show up on a day-to-day basis and treat each other and treat ourselves and build this business. Most companies do it wrong, or they don't have them at all, or they have single words, which are confusing. I like companies to have a maximum of 4 or 5 core values that are really easy to understand phrases that need no explanation whatsoever. An example of a company that I helped build was called College Pro Painters. Our core values were deliver what you promise, respect the individual, pride in all you do, and find a better way. Those were the 4 core values. And we were willing to fire people who broke those core values. And we only recruited and hired people who already lived those core values day to day in their normal lives. So core values become a foundational underpinning, like a foundation of a home. The second one, and by the way, the only time I've ever let a client have a single word as a core value was a client that I coached in Florida that went on to become the number 1 company in Florida to work for. Their 5th core value was simplify. And I'm like, oh, so good, right? It's just so good. But that's the only time I've ever seen a single word that is so clear that it just works. Second part is the core purpose, right? It's the Simon Sinek start with why. It's that why do we exist? Simon used to be on our board of advisors back when I was scaling 1-800-GOT-JUNK and I was the COO there. Simon was on our board of advisors for 4 years, way before he wrote the book, Start With Why. So we were very indoctrinated into understanding core purpose. Core purpose is the why you exist, and it allows you to say no to opportunities as a company and allows you to say yes to opportunities that are kind of like a full body F yes, right? So my core purpose is to help entrepreneurs make their visions come true. So my books help entrepreneurs make their visions come true. My online training grows their managers, which helps their vision come true. My COO Alliance, my speaking, my coaching, my group coaching, everything I do is aligned with my core purpose. The other day I was invited to go to speak to a government agency. I just said no, even though they wanted to pay me my full fee, because it's speaking to the wrong group of people that wouldn't care about the information I'm trying to relay. It would create some negative energy or negative buzz or negative word of mouth. And sure, I'd get a check, but it's not worth the time or energy. But if I say yes to a group, like I spoke to the Entrepreneurs Organization in Melbourne, Australia last month, that was a full body F yes, because it was 100 entrepreneurs in a cool market that wanted to grow their businesses and I could teach them. So that's the second corner, is your core purpose. The third is your BHAG. It's that big, hairy, audacious goal. What's that big long-term push? And a culty culture is when everyone is driving towards that big long-term purpose. Colonizing Mars is a BHAG, right? Democratizing the world information is Google's BHAG. Putting a computer on every desktop and in every household was Microsoft's BHAG. My BHAG is to replace vision statements with vivid visions worldwide. But culture emerges when people are kind of obsessed with those 3 things. The plan helps people stay on track to get there. So when people show up every day, they're working on stuff that matters. They can see how their work is driving the core values, core purpose, the vision, right? They're working on stuff where they have the skills and the confidence to do it. That creates a good culture, right? Because people are excited and optimistic and they see value in the work that they're doing. And then the people systems is just getting rid of the jerks, getting rid of the toxic, negative culture, right? And bringing all the right people into your culture. So it's getting people that don't fit, that don't vibrate, that aren't a part of your core. That's kind of where I start with culture. It's not the massages. It's not the free lunches. Those are perks.
It's not the free pizza.
Correct. That's a perk, not part of a core value. Because you see it. I'll give an example on that. Like, let's say that you have 2 very wealthy families. And one wealthy family just spoils the kids, buys them anything they want. There's no core values. There's no core purpose. There's no common shared vision for us being a family. And then the other family has all those core things. One group of kids grow up not spoiled. The other group comes up very spoiled, both growing up in a very similar environment. Perks can create a sense of people feeling spoiled, people taking advantage of their boss, people expecting more but not delivering. It creates the wrong vibe completely.
So I have so many questions. A quick one is I've always said I don't partner with assholes, and you use the word
Sure.
jerks. And I even asked my friend, like, who hires these people? And it's like other jerks. And I say
Yeah.
this jokingly, but isn't that a big part of it? That your culture, your DNA, your company's soul is going to be different than another's, and someone who might be a jerk in one context is actually a good fit at a different company.
Yeah, not the companies that I want to help build, but
Fair.
yes. And that's why it's important for a company to decide what their culture is going to be, right? An example would be Grant Cardone's culture is a very brash, strong ego, drive, money culture.
Yeah, where's my
That
money
would,
at? Let's go get money.
right.
Yeah.
That would not be the culture at, Sarah Blakely's Spanx or at Kendra Scott's jewelry company, right? Where everything is beautiful and loving and caring. And so culture transcends sports. You look at the culture of one hockey team like the Vancouver Canadians versus the hockey team of the Chicago Blackhawks, very different cultures. So even in sports teams, culture is very obvious, where a certain player could be one of the best players in the world, but if they don't mix with the rest of the players, grandma was right. One bad apple spoils the whole bunch.
Yeah.
You have to be careful with who you bring into your company culture.
Thanks to grandma for that one. You made a slight jab at mission statements. So what's wrong with mission statements?
So the traditional vision statement or mission statement is that one sentence where you get a bunch of your people together in a room. You all put your favorite words up on a whiteboard. You vote on which are your favorite words and you put them all into one sentence. And it's kind of like a mashup of like, we build the best products to deliver the best this to the best that for the best whatever. It's like, go team. And everybody's like, this is really stupid. It doesn't explain the culture of a company. A vivid vision is a 4 or a 5-page description of what your company looks like, acts like, and feels like 3 years in the future, as if the owner was walking around their company describing everything, describing the interactions with the customers, maybe 3 or 4 sentences, describing how the employees work together, describing how we live core values and hire against the core values and how we celebrate core values on a daily basis, describing the office environment, describing our hybrid work culture, describing our meeting rhythms, describing our use of metrics, describing sales and marketing and operations and IT and finance with enough description that somebody else could go, oh, I can see it. I can literally see your company. That's a vivid vision. And then every sentence of that 4 or 5-page document becomes a future state that you can reverse engineer and help make that sentence come true.
So I have a 4 to 5-page document. Is someone going to read it? Don't I need to simplify? That seems like a lot of content to hand over to someone. Thoughts?
But it's what they're starving for. It's really what they're starving for. Your employees want to know what they're building. There's the old story of the three guys making bricks in Barcelona, Spain. They're sitting on this, the dust, and they asked the one guy, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm making bricks." They asked the second guy, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm building a wall. I get to make bricks to build a wall." They asked the third guy, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm building the Sagrada Familia. It's going to be the most incredible cathedral to worship God, and I get to make the bricks to build the left wall of the cathedral." So who do you think wants that vivid vision of what they're building? Everybody. Yeah. Because otherwise they're just doing a job and they don't know the purpose of the job. They don't see how that work connects. They don't see the meaning behind their work. They don't understand the greater purpose. They don't understand why we're saying yes to some things and no to other things. Back in the 1970s, it's my way or the highway. It's, this is the way we're doing it. Well, that's why no one studied culture back in the 70s or 80s. Culture really didn't exist. It was a very autocratic, dictatorial way of doing stuff. That changed in the era of the .com era, where we realized was to align and inspire people, we could get more out of them than simply telling them what to do.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. What does it look like when a company's just doing this wrong? Feel free to give an example if you'd like, or be general. Yeah. I'm not here to...
When a company's doing it wrong, they end up with people who are showing up every day with ideas on how to grow the company that are completely valid ideas, but not at all aligned with the direction the CEO wants to take it in, or with what because they can't see what the CEO wants to build. So you end up with all these random ideas and having to say no to people, but they don't understand why we're saying no. Like if you pulled your 3 kids into the car and the one kid said, hey, can we go to McDonald's right now? And you just said no. But what they didn't know was we're driving to grandma's house 20 minutes away to have lunch with her. They don't have that same vision as mom and dad. So then they're just frustrated. Mom and dad don't listen to me. Mom and dad don't take my ideas seriously. No, mom and dad just had a different plan. They didn't tell you what the plan was. That's one. Number 2 is when you have that high performing, toxic, negative energy person in your company, right? That cultural cancer where then your good, honest people that are working hard, that are collaborating, that are trying their best feel like they don't matter. That why are you taking care of the jerk, but you don't care of me, right? Why are you giving the jerk the private office, but I have to work on the floor with everybody else because I get along with people better, right? So you end up kind of hurting people. I believe that the leader should be spending more time with the A players and B players and should be actively getting rid of the C players. But the culture can become very wasteful. Companies can become very wasteful. They asked Herb Kelleher from Southwest Airlines, how do you get all your employees to be so happy? He said, we hire happy people, right? You can't train a negative, grumpy, underperforming worker to be happy. And a good example is go to the post office and find a really great, happy, friendly employee. They're not there. Like they just don't work there. So anyway, yeah, those kinds of things.
Do you think, this is more philosophical, but do you think if they had a better understanding of their purpose and their vision in that role, would we see more happy post office people, for example?
Possibly. But again, I think it's just culturally you're hiring the wrong person, right? You can't put the square peg into a round hole. So you need to hire people that already are hard workers, already are goal oriented, already are tenacious, already like, if they are those things, they're probably not ending up working in the post office. So you have to create an environment to attract these people. You have to expect that they're going to work together, and then you have to go and work really hard to bring them in. We worked very hard to bring in one great employee at a time, knowing that was going to create a buzz and an energy that would create more and more energy that would attract more and more people. But if you have the wrong energy, you're never going to be able to bring great people into your company in the first place. They just sense it. They can see it. Or they read the reviews on Glassdoor and Indeed, and they're not going to join a company with a 2.6 rating.
How do you find these folks and how do you incentivize them? Because not all of us are perfect employees. How do you find the best ones? And are you just offering them a better incentive, like more income? Like, how do you find them, keep them? Because everyone needs good talent. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but a lot of people will overpay to have average people. I'll give an example. I was in Dubai recently. I was speaking at a big event, 2,500 person event called Mind Valley. And I was speaking to one of the attendees after my talk, and he was about 6'7". I'm 6'4". So I'm looking at this guy. I'm like, so what do you do for sport? Right? And he's like, I play volleyball. I'm like, oh, where'd you play? He goes, I'm professional. Like I'm actually a professional volleyball. I play beach volleyball for money. I'm like, wow. So I said, if you and your partner played me and 5 of my friends, he started laughing. Even before I could finish the sentence, he said, every game. I'm like, no, like how often would you? He goes, every game. We would beat you every game. And I thought about it and I said, wow, if you hired 2 people and paid them $200,000 each, that's $400,000 for 2 of the best. Or you hired 6 people and paid them $100,000 each, you got 6 very average people costing you more than the 2 experts. And the 2 experts will kick the ass of the 6 because they'll come in with tech experience, they'll come in with AI experience, they'll come in with mindset, they'll come in with minimum viable everything, they'll get stuff done and get it out the door. They're not going to waste time. They'll work well together. Like they just get more done. So yeah, you can pay people more, but you can also hire less. You hire the Navy SEALs. You don't hire a bunch of postal workers, right?
Yeah. Do you know what's the overall cost on like a failed hire, a failed employee after training?
15 times their annual salary is the data from a group called Top Grading. Wow. So if you have $100,000 person, it costs you 1.5 million in opportunity cost, in lawsuits, in missed opportunities, in negativity that spins off. Like there's just too much that happens or doesn't happen that it's costing you way more than it's worth on what you might have been saving.
Actually,
I even had somebody, I was coaching a client who had a chain of dental offices, and he said, "Oh, that's just my receptionist." I'm like, dude, that's your director of first impressions. That is the first person that every customer sees when they come into your office. That's the last person that every customer sees when they leave your office. That's the first person that every employee sees to start their day. Like, this is literally your energy force. He's like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way." I'm like, you're doomed to be average. The reason why most companies are very average is like they just don't do any of these things. To become a true best place to work, you have to obsess about this stuff. You know, you got to be positive 80 or positive 90% net promoter score. Positive 50 is just, it's considered world class, but it only puts you in the top 25%. That still gives, like in Canada, there was or in the United States, there's 15 million companies. So if you're in the top 25% of that, there's still 3.7 million companies that are as good or better than you. That's not moving the needle. You know, to really be in the top, like to be number 2 in the United States on Glassdoor, they were like a positive 90% net promoter score. No one was quitting.
Wow.
Right.
So very solid segue into, when do we hire a CEO? I just said CEO. This is my CEO brain.
A COO.
A COO. So people like me, I'll put myself on the spot. Like, I love ideas. I love doing the value exercise. I love sales and marketing and talking to people. But the operations, it's confusing. My brain is going in multiple different directions.
It's confusing for you because it's not your unique ability. It's not your skill set. But for an operator, it's actually a lot of clarity. Operators, COOs or director of ops, VP ops, the second in command, the integrator to the visionary, find the CEO's role very confusing. How do they stay up? How do they stay optimistic? How do they stay so visionary? How do they know where to go? How do they take all this risk? How do they not sleep? They find that very confusing. So what you're identifying right now is the stuff that you're not good at, but is necessary, is stuff that you have to hire somebody who can do, who is really good at it, who loves doing it. Don't put a COO title on your first, second in command. A title should be based on the roles and responsibilities, the money that you're paying, the amount of strategic insight they bring to your company, the level of P&L responsibility that they have, and the amount of autonomy that they can work at day to day in their job, right? The amount of, they can just show up and do work and you don't have to delegate to them. So the higher they are on all those things, that's a C level, right? A true COO. If a COO was coming into your company, you wouldn't be delegating anything to them. They would be telling you what needs to happen. They would be showing you where they're going. They would be taking stuff off your plate. They would be putting the plans in place and getting you to sign off on it. They'd be asking for budgetary approval and you'd be like, holy shit, you're amazing. They'd also bring partners in. They'd bring suppliers in. They'd bring employees in. That's a COO. A VP ops is somebody that you're collaborating with. You're doing stuff together. It's a bit of a divide and conquer. It's kind of a partnership. A director of operations, you're probably telling them what to do more and they're executing for you. In all cases, that could be your second in command, but there's a very different comp structure for each of them. And there's a very different way of managing and leading those people. So the reason that I even wrote the book and called it The Second in Command was I wanted people to think of the title. It's the same with finance. You know, your head of finance could be a controller, director of finance, vice president of finance, or a CFO. Be careful with giving out titles too big, too early.
Where do we get The Second in Command? It's your latest book, right?
Well, yeah. The book, The Second in Command, you can get everywhere. It's available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. But you will never find a really good COO who's actually on Indeed or Glassdoor or looking for jobs, right? The best employees already have a job. The best employees are not unemployed, right? The best employees are usually working somewhere, knocking the cover off the ball, working for a company. Your job is to entice them into your company culture. That's why culture is so strong for attracting great people, is great people only want to work with great people. Great people only want to work with A players. Great people only want to work in high performance environments. Great people want to work on lean smaller teams of, Navy SEALs versus the long trudging army of a post office.
At what point or what kind of problems are coming to the surface that it's actually officially time to hire a COO? And the follow-up question is going to be is what if I don't have the revenue yet for this? I'd love to tackle that for people that aren't having big businesses just yet. But when does a business decide to bring on a COO?
Well, let's not start with a COO. Let's start with someone to do some work for you, right? Fair. First off, if you don't have an executive assistant, you are one.
For yourself.
Let that burn in, right? So, and by the way, like if I was on your board of advisors and knew that I was paying you $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year as the entrepreneur or $500,000 a year, whatever you're earning, and you were doing minimum wage work, I would lose my shit. Like, why am I paying you $500,000 a year or $200,000 a year to do $10 or $12 an hour tasks? Right. So first key hire for every entrepreneur is to get an executive assistant or a fractional EA to get a bunch of the admin off our plates to free us up to do the stuff that we're really good at and we love doing. Then once it's stuff that is above an EA's pay grade, then you can get more of an operations person to come in. Somebody who can manage projects, manage freelancers, manage timelines, manage directives, and can go out and hit metrics, right? The jack of all trades, master of none. And then once you have a team of people, then you really need to get more of a vice president who's overseeing it all. But you kind of migrate up the org chart. So as your org chart gets bigger, you start hiring people. Where it becomes obvious for a CEO that they need to start hiring either an EA or a second in command is when you're working on a lot of stuff that you're not good at, or when you're working on a lot of stuff that drains you of energy, or if you don't have any time to grow the skills and the confidence and the connections of your people. If you're literally just like delegating and hoping it gets done, but you're not growing them, coaching them and developing them, those are pretty clear signs that you could hire a second in command and that will help you scale. Now, let me talk about the true, let's say you're hiring what size company should we target here? $2 million company, $1 million company, $5 million company? Who should I speak to?
Let's do $1 million company.
Okay. You're $1 million company. You probably have, 3 or 5 people working for you as freelancers, part-time people, fractional people, what have you. You're thinking of hiring a director of operations who's going to cost you $120,000 a year. You're not paying them that money today. It's not $120,000 you have to come up with right now. It's $10,000 a month for 12 months. Okay, so now $10,000 sounds a lot more palatable, but it's also not $10,000 right now. It's $5,000 for the next 2 weeks, and then it's $5,000 for the next 2 weeks. So it's really $5,000 for the next 2 weeks you have to think about. It's actually only $2,500 a week, right? If you paid a $120,000 skilled person who's good at ops and said, I need you to work on some stuff to generate $5,000 in gross margin, to generate $10,000 in sales, could they? Probably. They'd probably free your time up to go out and land some more customers. So the key is to put a plan in place and execute against the plan to generate 3 to 4 times gross margin of what that new hire costs, and then execute on the plan. So plan your work and work your plan.
What about what advice would you give to a $50 million company? Bigger problems here.
Same thing. Look for that true second in command, the $300,000, $400,000 person. Take a look at how can they generate $1 million in gross margin for you? How can they free you up to build a better organization, to handcuff your people, to take over a market? How can you look for market expansion? Whatever it is, wherever you're going, whatever's on your vivid vision as an organization that you don't have the time or the energy or the skills to do, hire somebody who has that or who can bring that into your company, and you win.
One more category. And I know this might reiterate some of the stuff we started with, but what if I'm a $50 business? I've just got started. What recommendations do you have for that entrepreneur?
Yeah, my big recommendations are, the first off is that everything comes down to sales and marketing, right? Find more revenue, find more revenue, find more revenue. There's not a single problem that exists inside of your company that writing a check can't solve. So go find more revenue. That's number one. Number two would be to work on the critical few things versus the important many. right? There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of stuff up there to suck up your time and energy. Only work on the stuff that is going to actually drive your business forward. That's going to bring in revenue. So just stay focused and focus on revenue.
Can you personally help $50 and $50 million businesses? Do I have to be a big shot to hire you? How can we get in touch, have more Cameron mentoring and training us in our lives?
Yeah, you probably can't afford me for the mentoring and training. I'm $80,000 a year for a 90-minute phone call. So that's probably out of most people in your audiences. But where they should go is for sure take a look at my Invest in Your Leaders training. It's called investinyourleaders.com. It has the 12 core skills that I coach all of my CEOs that I coach, that I've trained everybody in 1-800-GOT-JUNK and all the brands that I've helped skill up. That for the money, for $650 is huge value for everybody. So I would put you and your management team through Invest in Your Leaders. And then I would take a look at a couple of my books. I would look at The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. I would look at Double Double as two really good starting points. I think those would be good starting points for people. And then I have a lot of free content on my YouTube channel. If you go to CameronHerold.com, it's HEROLD. CameronHerold.com has links to my YouTube channels, my podcast, my books, my course. It's all on there.
Quick closing question. So you do the Miracle Morning?
I co-authored The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs with Hal Elrod.
Right. So walk us through what a morning in Cam's household might look like.
So it depends. We're nomads. We sold everything 4 years ago. So we've been traveling the road and working on the road. I'll walk you through what the good morning savers are. And it actually starts more with the night before, right? And getting proper sleep. But the savers are starting off your morning with silence. So just waking up, easing into the day, listening to the noise around, the birds around, the kind of ambient hum, and just kind of settling into, okay, I'm alive and this feels good. And then there's an affirmation. The affirmation is just one positive phrase that you say to yourself that might change up weekly. It might change up monthly, whatever that is. One of mine that I used for a long time was I'm very confident and gaining confidence each day. That was just a morning affirmation. Then there's a visualization. That can be reading part of your vivid vision. It could be listening to an audio version of your vivid vision. It could be going on to a call. This morning, my visualization was going on to a coaching call with the CEO of ButcherBox. And I just got myself ready, showing up for the CEO of a $600 million company, for how I was going to show up, how I was going to run the call, what kind of energy I was going to bring into the call. Then you go into exercise, which is the E. So even if it's like a quick 7-minute workout or going for a walk or doing some burpees or something to get the blood flowing, then it's reading. And that can just be listening to an audio book or actually picking up a physical book. And then scribing, which is journaling. So whether that's your 5-minute journal, your gratitude journal, that's the good normal morning saver habits. And then you can layer on to that, right? You can have energy shots or drinking your apple cider vinegar or, whatever the things you're going to do to start your day. Vitamins and probiotics that I keep in a pill case with the day open. So I always remember to take them, the basics.
Beautiful. I'm an advocate. I do my version of the Miracle Morning, Cameron, but I haven't read that book that you co-authored, The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs. So I'm going to, but my one main question is, aren't entrepreneurs too busy for this?
No, I think we're too busy not to. We have to take care of the racehorse, right? Entrepreneurs are the racehorse, and you'll never see a pro athlete who is working their hardest as a pro athlete 60, 70 hours a week. They might be performing their sport for 5 hours a week. They might be cross training. They might be resting. They might be working on mindset, nutrition. They might be just spending time. So yeah, the CEO should not be just waking up in the morning and working hard until midnight every day. You're going to burn yourself out, right? It's working on the critical few things, working on your skill set, working on your mindset, working on your community, working on your hobbies, delegating everything except genius.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Where are you headed next? You mentioned the nomad lifestyle. Anything in the vision, the future?
Yeah, I'm heading off to New Zealand this weekend for a week, and then I'm up to Papua New Guinea for a trip with a group of entrepreneurs into the depths of the jungle of Papua New Guinea, which will be kind of cool. And then we're off to Cape Town for a month,
South
3.5 weeks in Cape Town.
Send me some pictures, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
All
on the
right.
show.
I'll share them on my Instagram for sure.
Share it on the Instagram. I'll add all the things we talked about in the show notes. And again, I appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun.